Colorado prepares to move beyond the Omicron wave. Mask orders could come down next week. For some Coloradans getting past COVID, the mental symptoms are lasting long after the physical ones are gone. Another election clerk in Colorado admits to following directions to get inside voting files and then make copies for outsiders. A cool collection of music memorabilia belongs to an even cooler Coloradan. And our Friday good news is for everyone who has ever loved and lost a pet.
Hi, baby. Hi, baby.
All the feels. Next. Looks like it'll be Mask Off February in Denver and surrounding suburbs. City is likely to drop its indoor mask requirement next Thursday. Public health leaders say they're encouraged by the steady decline in case rates and positivity and hospitalizations. Denver and the surrounding counties, with the exception of anti-mask Dougco, have tended to work together and move together on these things. Cases and positivity are down statewide. 7-day average has drastically declined from the crest in the second week of January when we were at almost 30%. About 21% of tests have come back positive for COVID over the last 7 days. You know, for all of our conversations about COVID's impacts, we so rarely talk about how it can impact somebody's mental health, even long after other symptoms have passed. Arnusha Roy takes a closer look.
After quietly suffering alone, a viewer wrote in. She had COVID around a month ago and then noticed that she started having anxiety to the point that it's affecting her life day to day. She says it took time for her to connect the dots between the time she got sick and then when she noticed changes in her mental health. She can only imagine other COVID survivors are going through the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common.
Dr. Justin Ross with UC Health said anxiety post-COVID makes a lot of sense.
And so from a psychological development area, it makes sense that following contracting the virus, people would be struggling with all the elements that propped up anxiety.
The pandemic is ripe with uncertainty, feeling a lack of control and threats to our health. And while COVID has been heavily studied, there is a lot left to be explored, and its impacts on mental health is one of those areas.
A question that we'll need to continue to pay attention to.
At the same time, so many people developed anxiety, depression, and PTSD. It's listed as a long-term COVID symptom, along with headaches, shortness of breath, and neurological symptoms like memory loss and brain fog.
If we assume that COVID is going to play out very similarly to other stressors, people who've experienced COVID, be it being ill, someone they love being ill, or just living in society.
I'm a big believer. I often talk about mental health concerns are not mental health concerns. They're really common human experiences that occur because you're deeply human.
So that last point is one that I've been thinking about a lot all day, because the person who did reach out to us was worried about going on camera because of stigma and how that might play out at work, but at the same time feels like no one is talking about this stuff, which can be very, very isolating. So mental health advocates said the same thing, and they hope that by opening up the conversation, maybe employers can be a little bit more flexible, and then maybe more people will be comfortable with reaching out for help.
And it can be so discouraging, Anusha, if somebody turns somewhere for help, gets a no, or gets turned sideways and then just might give up entirely, you know?
Yeah, so the woman who reached out said that she reached out to her primary care doctor, and then the doctor didn't have an appointment for months and she needed help right away. And she's kind of just been stuck ever since, just spinning her wheels trying to find some help. So the advice today was reach out to the mental health centers directly, the therapist directly. Of course, check insurance and out-of-pocket costs. But Kyle, what has popped up recently with the pandemic is actually online platforms to connect with therapists. This is in-state, out-of-state, and it's just another way that people can kind of open the door to get some help.
Yeah, to have that conversation. Anusha, thank you. Within the last 2 minutes there, while we were talking to Anusha, the state health department made a significant announcement. It is dropping the vaccine requirement for large public events, indoor events, unseated events with more than 500 people. Until now, until tonight, there's a vaccine requirement for those events in Denver County, as well as Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Jeffco, and Broomfield. But effective immediately, the vaccine requirement for large public indoor unseated events has been dropped by the state. Election rigging conspiracy theorists have hinted that they have people on the inside in Colorado's clerk's offices that run elections. Well, now the Elbert County clerk and recorder, who admitted to taking forensic images of his county's voting equipment hard drives, also admits he got outside guidance on how to do that and gave those files to people who don't work in the elections office. The Secretary of State is investigating Republican Elbert County Clerk Dallas Schroeder for an alleged breach of security protocols. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold found there might be a security breach when Schroeder filed an affidavit, part of this election conspiracy lawsuit he's involved in against the Secretary of State. And the clerk admitted, quote, "I made a forensic image of everything on the election service, and I saved the image to a secure external hard drive." Clerk Schroeder admits that 2 people not employed by his office were on the phone with him, telling him what to do when he was inside the county's voting systems. Clerk Schroeder says 2 attorneys, his own and a second private attorney, now have copies of those images. The Secretary of State's office is demanding that those voting system files be returned, and now they've involved the Attorney General's office. So day by day, we learn more about how emergency alerts worked and did not work during the Marshall Fire. Tonight, for the first time, we see an escape from the Spanish Hills neighborhood after people heard about the fire on Facebook. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
New video from the Marshall Fire shows us an escape from the Spanish Hills neighborhood in Boulder County, west of Louisville.
Holy our house is gonna burn up.
Part of the clip of the video, you can see a branch on fire that just crashes in front of his car.
Oh,
That was about 10 minutes after we realized that the fires were in our neighborhood.
Carissa Costello was driving ahead of her partner Dave, who shot this video around 1:40 p.m. on December 30th. They lived west of McCaslin Boulevard, south of South Boulder Road, in an area that was sent an evacuation order at 1:15 p.m.
We saw a message, I think it was on Facebook or something, that my roommate saw saying that there was a fire over by Target. That was really the only notification that we got. No texts, no calls, nothing.
Like we've heard from many who evacuated on their own, Carissa and her partner did not have a landline and were not signed up for the opt-in emergency notification.
No, I wasn't at the time. I'll make sure that I am forever. Wherever I end up after this.
As we found out earlier this week, even for the people who were signed up to receive emergency notifications, they may not have. Data provided by Boulder County shows only 1 in 5 notifications were confirmed to have been received. Near where Carissa lived, Boulder County can only confirm 8% received the evacuation alert.
I can tell you, having been in the room, every emergency notification that we sent out from our dispatch center was sent out within minutes of it being requested.
Boulder County Sheriff's Division Chief Curtis Johnson, who lost his own home in the Marshall Fire.
all you can see left in my garage is the refrigerator.
He explained how it works for an evacuation order to be requested and issued.
It really is dependent on first responders in the field identifying areas that are in the fire's path, relaying that information up.
Everybody south of South Boulder Road is going to need an evacuation. This fire is going to run to the north. We're going to have direct impact on houses immediately.
As soon as we're told, send it, the dispatch center can draw it, map it, create the message and send it.
Even 10 more minutes, if we had 10 more minutes, we could have grabbed so many more things.
Carissa would have liked an Amber Alert type text sent to cell phones in a certain area, something Boulder County was approved to use in 2019, but has yet to complete setting up.
This drives home the fact that we really need to leverage better technology and get the system in place sooner than later, knowing that it's not perfect as well.
You know, I've spent a lot of time looking into the part of Louisville that received an evacuation order at 2:51 p.m. It's just to the east of where Carissa and her partner evacuated from. My ultimate question, was that alert meant to be sent any earlier? The city spokesperson will not provide any additional information since telling me last week we're still looking into it. And today, Kyle, is 29 days since it.
The importance of the emergency alerts is brought home not only by what Chris told you, but in seeing that video. Not only do people need to know that they need to go, they need to know the safest direction to go. Because you can tell from those videos, it's impossible to tell where the fire is around them.
Absolutely. And from their neighborhood, they had to get to South Boulder Road.
Yep.
I learned today part of the evacuation notification is to give some sort of discernible direction. Give them an actionable item. Get out, go this direction.
Yeah. And with the case of Spanish Hills, I don't know that you can get out to the south. I think you have to go north to South Boulder Road, and then you can go east or west out of there. All right, Marshall, thank you. A quick update for you on the reopening of the Table Mesa King Soopers. This company announced today that that store that was the site of last March's shooting that killed 10 people is going to reopen on Wednesday, February 9th. A long community process to kind of reimagine and redo that storefront following the shooting. The reopening was postponed due to the King Soopers strike. Yesterday marked a month since the shooting spree that killed 5 people in Denver and Lakewood. 4 of them were creative artists in our community. The nonprofit Redline Contemporary Arts Center has created a new fund specifically to support emerging artists doing the work similar to those who are lost, to encourage and preserve art like theirs focused on social justice in Denver and in Colorado. And this week you've raised almost $10,000 through your Word of Thanks campaign that the nonprofit Redline will use in direct consultation with the families of those who were killed last month to support artists who are doing similar work, particularly Indigenous artists and women of color. If you scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, we'll send you that link to join me in donating. The legacy of Alicia Cardenas, Alyssa Gunn Maldonado, Danny Schofield, and Sarah Stack will carry on in part through the artists that we support in their future work. Colorado's most troubled school district has fired the company in charge of getting it back on track.
Canta y no llores.
You don't have to leave Colorado to find one of the most dedicated mariachi fans in the world. In your Friday good news, the month's worth of agonizing worry leading up to one moment, and it's next. The Adams 14 school district ditched a company trying to turn that struggling district around, and the State Board of Education is having none of it. The district's been working with the private company MGT to help run its schools and improve their low academic performance. Last summer, the district locked the contractor out of the process. Adams 14 then lost its accreditation for a few days back in October. After being ordered to submit a joint letter with MGT showing how they'd work together to improve school performance, district eventually did submit the letter and got the accreditation back. Clearly, though, this is a spoiled relationship. District fired MGT earlier this month, asked the State Board of Ed if it could bring in a different management company. The state regulators unanimously denied the request today. It is a temporary denial. The State Board says it wants to hear from the public on the future of Adams 14 and is also waiting on the results of an independent report on what went wrong in that relationship. Should be ready by March, and the State Board wants to see it first before deciding the next steps.
Well, we got a little bit of everything for you coming up over the next few days. We've got some warmer temperatures this weekend, then the cold and the snow return next week, specifically on Wednesday. I'll have more on that in just a second. Meantime, tonight, temperatures drop back into the low 20s, seasonably chilly tomorrow. Beautiful 53 degrees. How about that for your January the 29th? Mostly sunny skies for us. And take a look across the state. Bluebird Day in the mountains, 30s and 40s for us, 50s and 60s along the eastern plains. But that 7-day forecast, well, at least if you don't want to keep those 50s around, because next Tuesday and Wednesday, much colder with the potential for sub-zero temperatures by Thursday and Friday of next week.
Hey, you know the tradition around here on Fridays. We will always end the week sharing your good news, headlines of your life. And a bunch of people lined up asking to put positive vibes into the world this week. Sharon says her church congregation is sponsoring an Afghan refugee family that came to Fort Collins. 4 of the kids started school this week. Now there's going to preschool. Father just got a job. Mom's taking care of baby at home while she gets ready to learn English from a tutor. So much good news in just one family. Todd's a middle school teacher. Says during the school's girls basketball game the other night, ref noticed a lot of the players weren't wearing proper basketball sneakers. Family couldn't afford them. Ref reached out to Todd to donate sneakers to the girls.
Do you know you're almost home, baby? Mia. Mia, girl. Who is it? Who is it?
Hi, baby. Oh my God. Hi, baby.
All kinds of joy there. Hannah, the woman you see, was in a car crash a month ago, and her dog Mia was in the car, took off, so afraid, and she'd been missing ever since. Till yesterday, when she was found, a bit skinnier, otherwise okay. Month apart. What a story there. All right, what's the good news in your life? Let us know on our Facebook page, and it might just make headlines here. Some of the most unique instruments you'll ever see are in one man's basement.
I collect the instruments because they all have their own story.
The story behind an MSU Denver professor's fascination. Next. Dr. Lorenzo Trujillo lives and breathes mariachi culture. The professor of music at MSU Denver runs the school's mariachi program. He runs the Viva Southwest Mariachi Festival. But when we learned what he had in his basement, that's when we knew we had to meet him.
Okay, here we go. I'm Dr. Lorenzo Trujillo. I'm a professor of music at Metropolitan State University. We are in my home studio, and so my instruments are all located here as well as my library. Now let's go back in history. What I've done down here is I've collected rare and unique instruments. We found this in a vault in an adobe wall. Touch it if you dare. But I've also collected rare and unique pieces of art. Art that represent the santeros of northern New Mexico. I've been called a culture bearer. I collect stuff. I collect stuff because for us to know our past. And it's a transmission of a way of life. And so that's what I do and why I do it. I collect the instruments because they all have their own story, and I use them to tell the story of the Hispano, Latino, Mexicano, Chicano in Colorado, New Mexico, and Mexico. And that's what we do. Ay, 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 ay. Music is the only thing that transcends culture, time, and space. It's forever and it's in your heart. It's in the heart of every listener.
Culture bearer. Things are not always as they seem. Guy goes from villain to hero in our next story with just a little change in perspective. It's something that's not horrible. Plus your feedback next. When a porch pirate turns out to be a package protector, hey, that's something that isn't horrible. Sean was out of town for Christmas when he got a ring alert. Guy had walked up to his front porch in Golden, and it looked like he was snagging the packages on the porch. And Sean, of course, is helpless because he's watching his stuff get stolen from states away. Well, a few days go by, he gets back home, and he happens to check his backyard camera, and he sees what happened was the guy actually just took the stuff around to the backyard so that nobody would steal it. That's pretty cool. That is some neighborly goodness for you on a Friday. Send us something, anything that isn't horrible. That's tough to beat right there. Send pictures or video to next@9news.com or tweet them to us with the hashtag HeyNext. Darla writes in about Denver's likely dropping of the mask mandate, says they drop mask mandates and numbers go up too soon. Similar thought from Steve, who says, haven't elected officials learned that new COVID waves always follow the easing of restrictions? I'm not certain where we are on the causality of that. I think the thing ebbs and flows, and I think one thing we figured out is that we're not as smart about COVID as we might have imagined. Wendy says, great to see you back in the studio, but I miss the homey feel I got from you at home. I mean, like my girls running around upstairs making noise? See you next time.